Hello, this is Mr. Jarrett, and in this video tutorial, we are going to be 3D modeling this object in SOLIDWORKS. So the first thing I'm going to take notice of is where my origin is. And you can see I give you two different pictures for this. So I actually have two different origins, which essentially are the same thing anyways, though. The origin on the front view is dead center here of the entire thing. And when it rotates around to the right side, you can see the origin is on the front. Okay, so realistically, if we're looking at a 3D view, it's pretty much right there. Okay, so there's a lot going on because there are two different views. This can get very confusing for you, but what you can kind of see is this 3D picture up here. I gave you that as like a little help, so you understand that there's like an angled piece and there's a middle section to it as well. Okay. You can draw this several different ways. What I am going to do is kind of look at my right side view. Normally we just give you a 3D view or a front view. So the reason why we gave you a right side view here is probably for the reason of drawing it based off of your right side view. So my other thing that I'm going to take note of are actually my units, and my units here are IPS. So that's why you can see a lot of decimal places for the measurements. So I'm going to pull this to my other screen. I'd advise you to do so if you have the ability of doing that. And I'm going to start out by making a new part in SOLIDWORKS, making sure my units are in IPS, which my computer defaults to. And then I'm going to actually be sketching on the right plane. So from here, I'll get my line tool, and I'll simply just click on this origin, and I'm just going to roughly draw out the angled piece that I see first. Okay, now you can see that it defaults me to being parallel. Whether yours is or not, you are actually going to make this parallel later, so it doesn't really matter. I'll just keep mine like that for right now. I know that this is actually going to be perpendicular later on, but just to make sure that we are on the right page, I'll make mine not perpendicular. Okay, and then I'll come back up here. All right, so from here, I can actually start to look at my sketch and try to fix this up. Now you notice I didn't do this portion yet. I'll explain that later. But right here I can see that these two lines are not parallel to one another. So I'll select these two lines and I'll simply make those parallel. Okay. I need to make sure my bottom line and my top line are horizontal lines. So they are. That's good. And here I can actually dimension this stuff now. So from this angled line to this angled line is 0.62. And it looks like I should play the lottery today because I am real close to that, 0.62. And then we'll do that down here as well. This is 0.62. Okay. It says from the origin all the way out to this far point is a total of 4. It says from the very top line all the way down to this bottom line as a measurement of 3. Okay, and that's pretty much what we have so far. What we can see are a bunch of degrees in other places. So it shows you a 30 degrees here, so we can try to do that. So if we select this top line and this angled line and move into here, that is 30 degrees. So that whole top portion now is defined. And the bottom portion, there's a 60 right here. So let's do the same thing. We'll select the bottom line and this angled line, and we're going to make that 60. Okay. And before I said, let's double check to make sure that this is perpendicular. I'm just going to see if that is perpendicular. If you set it to perpendicular, it might give you this warning. So instead of doing that, I'm actually going to dimension this, and you can see it is 90 degrees. So if yours was already set to perpendicular, you're probably not able to put in that 60 because it's already going to be defined. Okay, but this thing is all defined right now, so that's all good. You can draw this extra piece now. We could do it later in a different sketch. I like to draw as efficient as I can in most cases, so I am going to actually draw this extra piece. So I'll get my line tool, and I'm simply going to start up here. I'll click, move straight over somewhere, and then down to this angled line. All right. Now, that line is blue. This one is not. That is underdefined because we have not set the distance yet. So this vertical line all the way to this back corner, it says it is 3.5. It does not have a height because it just continues until it hits this angled line. All right, so I am all good with my right side view. This is exactly how it looks. except for, sorry, I almost forgot this, except for this little fillet back here. So let's do that now. And that has a fillet of 0.25 with the green check. And that is all you see. Now you will also see these hidden lines on here. So these little dashed lines there and there, those are hidden because this line is indicating the bottom of this cut out in the middle, and this hidden line is indicating the top of this cut out of the bottom. Okay, so this piece and this piece here. So we don't need to draw those right now because those will actually come naturally later on. I'll go to my Features tab and I'll hit Extrude. And it's not going to highlight anything because it's asking us to select a contour. So I'm only going to select my main angled piece. I'll change this from blind to mid-plane, and I'm going to go the total distance, and I can see on my front view now that that is a total distance of 7. And we'll hit our green check. Now I'm going to hit Extrude again, and this time it asks us to pick an existing sketch. So if I hit that drop down, you can see I have my boss extrusion. Underneath that, I have my original sketch. So I'll select that sketch. And this time for the selected contour, I'm going to select that little top triangle piece. I'll also change this to mid-plane. And I'm going to make that total distance of 5. So you see how efficient that was? I only had one sketch there, and I have basically the entire shape except for this stuff cut out. Now, also by having that piece in here, I have a flat side to draw on. I don't have to make another plane or anything. Okay? But what you can also see is that I also have a front plane, and that front plane is going to put me way out here. So instead of sketching on this, which we would have to extrude cut both ways, I'm actually going to sketch on the front plane, but you can do it either way. Okay, so let's get our sketch tool, hit sketch, and when it asks us for a plane, yours is probably like this. So if you hit that drop down, you need to hit the front plane. I'll hit Control 8, and here I can now draw my kind of polygonal shapes. Now you can't use the polygon tool for this, but what we can use is just the line tool itself. So I'm just going to select there, kind of go down to somewhere around in here. Okay, go straight across, back up on an angle, and then close this thing off. So I'm only going to work on the top part first, and then we'll do this bottom part. That way we don't get too confused. So if we look at this upper portion, you can see that this is at 60 degrees. See it, we have 3 inches wide and 1 inch tall. Now we have to kind of assume that this is centered left to right, but you can also do the simple math. You see it's 5 overall. We've got 3 here, 1 here, so that means this is left over with 1. So we can just use the basic measurements to actually center this, or you could try to select that midpoint and the origin to make them vertical. But I'll just follow the picture and I'll just use the measurements that we have here. So this is 1. The top is 3. Okay, and this is also going to be 1 here. Now, that's going to be driven because this is already set to 5. So you can just double check that if you want, but it should be correct. This is 60 degrees, so if we click on that top line and this angled line, let's make sure that this is 60. We can do the same thing over here, or you could also set them to equal. 2 different ways of doing it. So everything's good except for this bottom line, and that is 1 from the top. So now we have that closed-in shape up at the top. Let's also do the same thing at the bottom. Let's make our bottom polygonal shape. So that's just going to go up, across, back down, and then close it off like we did before. Again, you can use your different measurements to actually get this thing fully defined. So that's 0.75 from the corner. The bottom here, it says it is 5.5. Same thing as far as degrees go. You need to click on the bottom line and one of these angled lines. And those are 30. So you can do the same thing on the opposite side, or again, you could just make those equal to one another. Works the same. And it's 0.88 from the bottom. Okay. So now that we have all of this fully defined, we can go to the Features tab and Extrude Cut. And since we are all the way out here on the far outside of this, when we change this from blind to through all, it will cut through all of it. Now, if you were sketching on this flat face here, you actually need to change it to through all both, and it would go both ways. Okay. But as you can see, it cuts through the whole entire thing. So we basically have the whole shape done. Let's change our material, and this is a 1060 alloy, which is a default. To evaluate in mass, and you should have 1.92 pounds. 0 for the X, you should have a positive Y and a negative Z. If you got that, you can save it and move on to the next one. If you did not, please problem solve and figure out where you went wrong.